That I meant. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie. I am live with the one and only Rachel B. Lee. Y'all, Rachel has worked with the world's leading brands, like across the board. It's been incredibly impressive watching her career, but also watching her build probably one of the most important technological AI integrations with the human being software subscriptions that I've seen yet. And Rachel, this is just in beta. And so I know that there's so much more that you guys have in the works. But before we even dive into what Humanize is, I'm just so grateful you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me again.
Yes.
The first time we podcasted, I look at that video and I was postpartum. I had such a mess in my, I look at it and I'm like, I think I forgot that it was in a studio and I didn't even fully do my hair. I'm just like, God, you were so nice. I definitely wasn't getting that much sleep. Hopefully, I got my shit together for you today.
Well, you look great. When you got on, I was like, girl, so here we are. And it was cool. It actually was a really meaningful time when we first had that, the Knowing podcast. The first 2 seasons were in person. And it just, man, it allowed for a connection, Rachel, that I think if we were just meeting virtually today, I don't know if we would have had the same kind of foundation because of that in person. So I appreciate you for showing up even when you didn't probably feel top dollar.
That's it. You just show up. Always show up.
Just show up. And, I'd love, today we're actually talking about how to really embrace discomfort for the purpose of growth. And I think even just what you just said, just show up. Having that mentality and having that approach to life of, I am going to do this because it's the right thing. I'm going to do this because I know that on the other side of this is going to yield me great returns. We've been talking on the Knowing Show actually this past week around where are we making investments because we will yield returns in every regard. So intellectually, where are you making investments? Emotionally, spiritually, physically? Where are you withdrawing from effectively the bank account of your energy every day, making intentional deposits and investments? And then are you doing so with intention? Are you actually proud of the deposits you're making? And are they intentional to then yield the returns that you want to be the life and legacy that you create? And so with this conversation around discomfort, you started off by kind of sharing a story in the green room around where you guys are going and what you're building and the discomfort there. So do you mind just kind of rehashing and even giving some context around Humanize in that regard?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been brand marketer 15 plus years. I was at Microsoft and Gartner, working with the biggest brands in the world, got my MBA here at UT Austin. So really learning scale, big corporate marketing. And in 21, in the midst of all the reevaluations, the greats, everybody was reevaluating their life and reimagining and all of that. I left Gartner, joined forces with Josh, who had founded Standout Authority. And together we've been on a mission to humanize how businesses go to market through the voices of the people behind the business. We think the most powerful marketing asset we have is the people. It's the personal brands. And so I've been working with amazing executives. We've worked with AWS, we've worked with BMC, we've worked with people like Peter Diamandis or Sally Hawkshead. I mean, really incredible established individuals. And what we've came to see is that there's a big disconnect between somebody's in-person presence, right? Their experience and how they are offline and how they are online. Additionally, we have been measuring success through vanity metrics, impressions, reach, engagements, which is supposed to, how well did somebody engage? How many times did somebody click something, right? This is how marketing has been measuring ourselves and thinking this is ROI. Everything is changing with AI. Everything is changing. 65% of searches are now ending in 0 clicks. And that's like doubled in definitely in the last 2 years, but it's accelerating. And over 50% of B2B, we think a lot about people that are talking to other businesses because that's where relationships matter the most.
Right.
Over 50% of those B2B buyers are starting their search in AI assistants.
Right.
So any of these LLMs, and that's a growing number. Just to like give us a baseline here.
Right.
So now the question is about how do you get discovered and trusted and chosen inside AI systems?
Mm-hmm.
Fundamentally, how LLMs work is much different than an SEO world, a Google search world, let's call it, right? This sort of way we've been doing business the last 20 years online. And Humanize is creating a new space in the market. We're building a human credibility intelligence platform. So, how do we turn human presence into a credible structure that AI systems can understand and choose you and trust you so that you're suggested to your clients, to the potential hire, to potential buyer? And what we know today is that the LLMs, large language models, right, your ChatGPT, whatever, the way that they're looking and pulling in information, some of the top places they're pulling in information from are LinkedIn, Reddit, Quora, which are what? Human driven.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Also brand mentions. How often are you being talked about and by whom? And how credible is that person? And what are they talking about?
Yes.
And so with Humanize, that we've created a scoring system. We've developed 7 trust signals based off of behavioral psychology and market research. Things like emotional resonance, authenticity, social proof, transparency, right? Things that they don't seem weird to you, but these are things that are important in decision making, but also inside AI.
Yeah.
Right? And we give you a score. We're not judging you, good, bad, but we're saying to you based off of observable public data. So we're taking in all sorts of data online.
Right.
Here's how you're showing up. Now, not just here's how you're showing up, right? How are you showing up across those different signals?
Right.
And what do you do about it? So we have Alice, who's our credibility advisor. She's AI powered. She's still learning, but she's been trained up, at least with Josh and me and a lot of our thinking. And what we're actually we're just in this phase now, right? We have the score app. Go to humanize.ai. You can get your score. You can talk to Alice. We're moving into even more analysis where we're able to do predictive content modeling and actually performance gap analysis of what we actually think you should put out there, how it actually should be, and how is it performing. So a giant flywheel of human credibility and our goal is to be the standard of trust and credibility behind businesses.
First, you explained that so well. So I know you've got a big pitch tomorrow to potential investors. I think you're all set.
It's so funny. I was practicing last night and I was like, let me give this a little spin on. So yeah, that's actually a lot of stuff I was practicing.
I loved it. Seriously, well, because what you guys are building is truly proprietary. And so to explain something that's never existed before, man, that's something completely innovative in and of itself. So how do you help people vision and see something that has yet to exist? And so I really loved this simplicity, but also the vision for how big this can get with what you shared. And really what's so interesting around this, I was teaching a mastermind yesterday morning and we were talking about, how are you pitching yourself and how are you presenting yourself? But what you all are doing is that you guys are looking at the echo chambers and how do they show up among everybody else? What is everyone else's perception of you as the individual? Which frankly, that's in one sense that warrants a greater degree of care to then consider, all right, well, what are the comments I'm making on other people's platforms? How are they showing up on mine? And now it's like, truly, it's like SEO. So the way websites would grow, and this is very much so in simplistic terms, it would be backlinking of like, I link to your site, you link to mine. And almost the LLMs are doing something similar where it's like, I comment on yours, you comment on mine. And now that's trust building or trust deteriorating.
Yeah.
So Rachel, I'm curious, on at least on YouTube, let's take YouTube as an example, because I think what the approach you guys are taking is so, so brilliant. And I'm so excited about this. I'm wondering for those who are on YouTube, who either they're bots or they are real people, but man, they just love to troll. What should creators do in that regard where they do actually have real kind of fake information on there? I actually have a number of keywords now that it won't allow people to post on my YouTube channel. But for many, many months, I didn't even realize I could basically blacklist keywords and have like negative keywords. And I was getting some very inappropriate, very cruel comments. And so I'm curious, like, how should creators be thinking beyond, Quora and Reddit? I love those, and I actually would like to talk about those platforms. But what are your thoughts in that regard? How do we kind of protect ourselves?
I don't have the answer for that from a technical standpoint, right? And things are moving so fast. I was just like learning about the agent side and what is that? Like there's so many things changing very, very fast. And now so many things are going to be agent led. And so there's all sorts of technology, and soon there will need to be regulation and how the agents are working and talking to each other, and where does the human come in? It's the Wild West. Like it really is, so I think there will be new guardrails and technology made by companies like YouTube and Google and Meta and OpenAI. They're developing so fast to help us with the issues that you're coming across, from what can I do? What can I do? I think this is where staying relevant, and you're doing a great job of this, keeping content fresh, keeping your story clean, keeping it consistent, right? When we work with our clients, we create an authority architecture, a playbook, and that includes their personal core positioning. Who exactly is their audience? What do they feel? What are their authority anchors? What are the content themes? Like based off of their entire story. And right now, the best thing we could do to help combat a lot of this junk that's happening is to continue to tell the nuances of our story, right? So that we attract the right kind of people, but also propel the ones that are not right. And what you're talking about, blacklisting, I mean, there's a lot of guardrails that I think we can all start to do in terms of our own systems. But it's a moving target right now.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you say that, because it is true. It's like, oh, there's not much you can do other than continuing to do what you almost already are. Like if it's calling people out of the woodwork, the trolls, so to say, usually when we bring out the haters, that means that you're actually perhaps doing something right. That's how a lot of folks have actually strengthened even their message, is when people have come out and been like, I really don't like that, to this point even of discomfort, kind of the theme that's kind of woven through all of this, and creating content and showing up and being brave enough. I think of Theodore Roosevelt's, his speech that he gave in 1914 in Paris, where he's got this section of it dedicated to the man in the arena, where he's talking about, it is not the critic who counts. It is not the people who point and sneer and mock you. Actually, they usually are not even living in the arena of their own life. They're just on the sidelines of everyone else's life, including their own. pointing the finger, rather than living and experiencing life with the courage that comes from being knocked down and then getting back up. And so with that, with the authority, you're talking about authority anchors in the nuance of your story. There's the courage and vulnerability of both of those that I think perhaps even amalgamate to the authentic you and me. That is the human. I love that it's humanized, because it's humanizing, but it's about you. And like, do you even know who you are to then be able to share those stories?
I can tell you from several years of working with the most incredible people, very, very, I would say none have shared their full story. And every single time when we go through our first session, we go through a whole brand session, and I say, where were you born? Tell me about your childhood. Like, that's where I want to start. And you know what they do? They take 1 minute. They say, oh, I lived here. I had a brother, da, 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 da. And they go to their college story. And I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. And we cover pieces about their story that are so relatable. So you're talking about courage and vulnerability. There's a lot of things from our story that we don't feel comfortable sharing, right? And there's a line, right? There's a line. All of us know what that line is for us, of like, but everyone needs to be on that edge. I say, you need to press the edge of your discomfort, right? And every time I do that for myself, what happens is my audience grows. I get the messages, right? The people that are like, oh, that really related to me, or that really hit, right? That happened to me too. And so I think that that's all we can do. And like, even put the AI, like all of this, the technology, and yes, all this stuff. I mean, like, at the end of the day, this is about humanity. This is about relationships. This is about bringing trust back, right? Because 70% of people do not trust other government leaders, business leaders, based off of values, beliefs. 70% of people. So that, the days of assuming positive intent and just go to, every single one of us, that's why the buying cycle is taking so long. That's why sales are down. That's why things are not working the way that they used to. People are fatigued. They don't trust. They're getting deep fakes. They're getting all this stuff in news and politics. So the more we bring forth that vulnerability and the like not cute side, it helps bypass where people are at.
The bypassing aspect, I love that use of that word, Rachel, in this regard, because it's almost like, to bypass the artificial intelligence, we're also bypassing all the other. It's like bypassing the LLMs, but also bypassing, I think, even our own like radar for like our bullshit lie detector, And so, to your point, when we're leading with that authenticity, when we're leading with this story, when we're leading with even our why, like, do we even have a compelling enough why for why we're even doing what we're doing and living the way that we are, parenting the way that we are? Are we just doing so out of what was modeled for us versus out of real conviction? And that changes everything. And it's like, people can't help but notice that and be kind of lean in, even if they don't like it. It's still, to your point, it kind of bypasses that detector that's up, because that detector is up for a reason, to keep us safe. Rachel, when you're working with these individuals and they're reticent to share their story, how do you help them kind of break through and maybe even remember things that they don't really want to, but that are actually really important to their why or their mission, or even their own being?
I ask questions. I'm very curious. I've always been very curious. It's why I'm a good marketer, a good human, good friend. Because, and I'm learning so much after the past couple years with my stepchildren, and just a lot of things that we've been going through, and having, teens, and just all this stuff. It's like, the words you shouldn't use. Like, why is the worst word you can ever ask somebody, you know?
Yeah.
Why are you feeling that way? Well, why don't you want to share something? Why are you feeling imposter syndrome? It's like, don't ask that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use that word. It's more like, well, that's interesting. Like, tell me more about that.
That's good.
Is it about you sharing XYZ story that makes you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Because I'm thinking of a very particular client that we have where, there's some family past history of in the war and things that, and, we're in a wartime now. And so there's just a lot of, external factors that make storytelling particularly difficult.
Right.
I'll use myself as a Jewish woman. I've decided that I'm going to honor Judaism when there's Holocaust Remembrance Day or, Jewish Heritage Month, holidays. I always make sure I show a post, or it's Christmaka. It's always Hanukkah and Christmas. Like, that's, to me, something I feel very responsible. Over the last several years, I have taken it upon myself to show the culture, because anti-Semitism has been on a steady rise, and there's so much hatred right now towards Jews. So I could make the decision. And let me tell you, my parents and a lot of people, Rachel, don't share that. Hey, maybe a little bit less, you're very out there open. And
wow.
I decided, people need to learn. They need to understand this part of my story and our story. And
right.
So for me, I'm going to take that risk. So every person has things, especially as you get older and wiser and more experienced. And so that's just my guidance for my guiding principles for myself.
Right.
And I encourage people to think about their own values and what really matters, to kind of what you're saying with all of this, right? It's like, what are we doing here? Like,
yeah,
it's like, you're not just, this takes a lot of time for you to be getting people on these podcasts and streaming it everywhere and doing it and sticking to it week after week. Like, you're not doing it because, oh my God, it's so good for your business. Like, you're doing it because you care. Like, you're trying, like, you really care, and you believe that there's something that you can help somebody out there. That's, to me, all that matters.
Yes. And man, okay. So two things. One, you were talking about your values. What are your values? Because somebody said this the other day, and that I've never heard this said before. They said, is it even a value if it costs you nothing? So your family saying, are you sure you want to do that? Because there's a cost associated with this value of yours. And it made me really question, my family and I are in this interesting experience where, truth is a real value of mine, but I actually have sacrificed on the truth on the altar of connection and peace. But is it actually peace under false pretenses? So then it forces me to question, is truth really that big of a value if I'm not allowing it to cost me potentially even relationships? I hope not. And I think that, the way you deliver the truth is something else to consider here. But if I'm claiming it's a value and it's not costing me anything, then it's just worth kind of bringing the magnifying glass and examining if this is a value. Because what you're saying and the way that you're embodying this value of yours, like, it is costing you something. And therefore it's almost like,
I'm not loving that.
Really? Tell me why.
Yeah, I don't think values, that just doesn't land for me. That a value has a negative, there's a cost to that. Like everything's a both and, right?
Yeah.
So I think that the cost makes it feel very negative. And values are things that we hold really deeply. There's no cost to it. It's our innate being. It's what we hold near and true. It's what we care about. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel about like it's a cost. So that's not resonating for me. Yeah. I don't think values should do that. I think that when we stay true in our values, other people might run up against some of their own BS.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
because with the value, it's like we were talking about with a strong brand. You'll have people who are attracted to it versus repelled by it. And sometimes for me, it has taken a cost. Like, for example, if I really do value health, am I willing to have the cost of going to the gym, even though I don't feel like it? So maybe cost isn't the right word. It's what's the action that's associated with the value? Because if it is internal and it is deeply held intrinsic to what you were saying, it's going to spill out into the corners of our life and touch those. So I like your challenge there, because I think you're right. Perhaps the cost isn't necessarily something that the ideal would be, that there is no ramification or whatever that word is. But when other people buttress our value and hold something opposing, what happens in that moment where there are the opposition of values? So I'm gonna think on that one, because I appreciate the challenge there, and I'm sure that there's a better way to say it. But
I've gotten really acquainted with the word trade-offs.
mm-hmm.
I thought becoming a mother and being a business owner and a wife and all these different hats that we wear as women, and the things we hold and the pressures that we have, it's not feasible. It's not possible. All the women in my life that are working and mothers and wives and they're great friends, like, we're holding so much. And I've told myself, well, there's just trade-offs, that sometimes when the baby is born the first year, like, I'm not going to be like rocking it in my career, right? Like, it's not going to be like that. This value, maybe, yes, I value family. That's very important to me. But the only family that's going to matter in the first year of life is that baby's life. Like, that's it, right? And some other people might go off the wayside. And so, I don't know, for me, trade-offs has been something that has made me feel like there's seasons to life, seasons to our journey. And sometimes I think values are evolving as you change. And the more that I think about, that's why that word cost didn't really land with me, because that's not the reality. We all make choices that we feel are aligned, and things change, and some people are with it or not. As long as you feel good about it, yourself, and it's not hurting other people, right? Like, I don't know.
Right. No, I like that angle. And to this whole conversation, you mentioned something earlier around discomfort, and some people are uncomfortable sharing parts of their story, and yet discomfort usually is the pathway to growth. How do you help people? And I think that this is where the values came in. And so tying values into potentially even this conversation in this moment, how do you help people decipher between this is discomfort out of wisdom versus discomfort out of fear?
Well, there's a feeling that, I think our body tells us a lot. I've only started to realize that, right, over the last, let's call it 5-7 years. There's this discomfort of, I'm getting nervous before I speak, right? I'm feeling like whatever, these sort of nerves, right? And anxious about something. Well, those are the same somatic experiences as excitement, right? So there's wisdom in that, knowing in that discomfort, like, what's really happening in my body right now? Like, what am I actually feeling? And then there's a feeling of burnout, right? And when I've reached, because I definitely burn myself out, and I feel it in my eyes. I feel like there is a feeling, right? And that's a heavy feeling. It's a fear that I'm not doing enough. So I'm going to push myself to a level where I'm physically now getting headaches. I'm not feeling good, my adrenals, right? And so that's just very uncomfortable, right? But they're coming from different places. So to me, that's wisdom versus fear.
Yeah. So for those of you who are joining us today, I want to go down a direction actually that we normally don't. So this will be fun. Rachel, you're talking about knowing those effectively those sensations in your body that give data on which action to take. You know, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's about how our body retains memories and moments that we've experienced in our life, whether traumatic or otherwise, and thus it keeps the score, it holds data. And so on the Knowing Show, we talk about, yes, intellectual intelligence, we talk about emotional intelligence, but also physical intelligence. Like our body has information for us to then accordingly. And so I would love for those who don't know how to sense that. Do you have any like little framework, or even just take a few steps and check in with how you're feeling? Because I think a lot of times we are so disconnected from our body because we either live connected to this more so than this. So how do you kind of encourage people to regain that connection point to then be able to even make informed decisions?
Therapy, medication. I mean, like it depends on what you need. I mean, very transparently, I take Zoloft. I've been on medication since going through IVF. For me, that helps keep me at a baseline through a lot of the things that we've been experiencing over the last couple of years. I work with a psychiatrist. I have a therapist. I have, friends and community that I lean on. I think so. There's a tool set. Everyone needs to develop their own coping tool set. And this is something we're talking a lot to the teens and the younger kids because they're the anxious generation. I mean, it's crazy what's going on with the kids that are, let's call it 11, 12, to 18, the high schoolers and middle schoolers. There's just a lot. And it's not the same. And so we have to have a tool set. We have to be able to check in. And so for me, like just a simple heart hold, I worked with Julie Reeser. I love her. And that was something that I've taken away. And a lot of people do that. Or I'm just like, oh, I can feel it. I'm like little frazzled. Even just before this, I've been running this morning. I'm running late. I could see I'm doing this. I'm like, my brain is like firing all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm literally doing 20 things at once. I'm like, oh, there's teacher appreciation week at school for Ava. Let me remember. Oh, let me text this person. Oh, there's the mamas that are texting and these people. Oh, I'm going to this event. Like literally all happening at the same time, right?
Yeah.
All of it. And then by the time I got to my desk, I'm like, I'm exhausted. I don't even know what, and I have this going, chatting with Christene. So I a lot of times just have to like just sit there.
Yeah.
And everybody's different. Some people like working out is a big one. With Skylar, she loves punching the bag. She does a lot of punching.
Nice.
So Christene, what do you do?
Well, with you saying the punching the bag, I actually asked a gentleman. He's a coach specifically just for men. Like that's what he does. And I said, what is the number one thing that you've seen make the biggest impact in men healing and growing and getting to the next level in their career, being a husband, father? And he said, I think if there was one thing, it would be doing some kind of physical activity. And he recommended jujitsu. And to me, I was like, man, he said the way to a man's heart is through aggression. And in the aggression, in the outlet, they actually can kind of get to that deeper level inside. And so I love, and I love all the array of examples you gave. I'm thinking about, for me, when I first started to kind of come to know who I am, the thing I did was I really put my phone down and went outside. And at the time I had my puppy. And so I would take him for walks. And that was, in the silence, you kind of recover access to your inner world in so many ways. And inner world can be really anything. Like when we were kids, we would go climb trees and imagine and create. We had imagination, and so much of that is what makes us human. And so in this whole age of AI, trying to recover the human intelligence, so to say, in the midst of artificial intelligence, it's like just being quiet, and giving space for imagination and thinking and creation. And I think even as I'm talking about this, I realize how much of my own creation is limited by my ego over, but what if my painting isn't good? It's like, well, I'm probably going to paint a terrible painting, but am I doing it for the sake of the outcome or for the sake of the process?
Yeah.
And the joy in the making of it? Because painting is something that I've been wanting to do. A friend of mine even bought me like an art set 3 years ago, and I've never once opened it because of that. Like, my ego wants me to only stick in the lanes that I have perfected.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like recovering the kid in us to live life.
That's one of the best parts about having a toddler, right? It's she's my call to presence. She's okay. We're going to get dirty. We're going to be messy. Okay. I got to come up with things for her to do on the weekends. I want to go do an activity, right? Like, and to your point, like putting the phone down in those moments is absolutely essential. Like even the dog walk, how often it's like, oh, I'm going to go on the dog walk and work and get a couple things done. But trying to maybe not do that.
It's funny. I think I mentioned this. Oh, yes. While we were in the green room, I was talking to you about Canada, and my sister has a place up there. And I went through, it was two weeks where it was 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., where I had no inputs. I just like eliminated inputs, where it was books, podcasts, music, TV. And it was like a terrible withdrawal of addiction towards the inputs of stimulus, wanting to be stimulated. And it's good things. Like books are good, in so many ways. And yet in that, it forced me, even now, I actually just got chills thinking about it. It was so hard to just exist in silence. And it was, lonely in a sense. And also at the same time, by the end of the trip, it was like I found like a comfort in even just like nature itself. And so, yeah, I think that it's like a resurgence and a recovery of those parts of us maybe that have been lost or quieted for a while. And what's cool is that therein lies a lot of content for us to, like, lessons that we can give to our clients, lessons that we can give to our kids, lessons we can just share, lessons just even for our own self. Like what are the core values that I hold for myself, and how do I honor those better? It's like we actually really become creators of our own lives in so many ways. So I love this. Rachel, if you were to just encourage all of us in terms of creating and leaning into the discomfort, perhaps even, you mentioned that LLMs are really paying attention to Quora and Reddit, among others. Can you, like, I never touch those platforms. So what would you advise?
Well, and LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn, yes. I've done more on LinkedIn. I haven't emphasized it a lot recently, so I need to circle back on that. But for those two, those feel like the wild, wild west to me. I'm like, I have no idea. What would you advise to other entrepreneurs that are really curious about that and want to take action according to what you're saying?
Oh, and Substack is another one. I've seen a lot of people launch their Substacks. Listen, like at the end of the day, we all have so much capacity. Like we can only do so much. Yes, you can get you can train up some agents, and you could try to get everything everywhere. Like there's going to be, but what's also happening, right, is there's so much out there that less is more. I think less is more. A place like Reddit or Quora, they're different strategies, right? Because you have to think about Rachel B. Lee as like a consumer, right? Yeah. That's just curious about like traveling, people are like looking up Reddit for TSA pre-check lines at Austin, like those kind of conversations, all the way to, bigger AI reveals, etc. So like think about how am I approaching it? What I've seen brands do is start to, with the kinds of conversations, like for instance, branding and marketing or whatever, intelligence software, like going into some of those feeds and starting to insert yourself, or let's say it's Humanize, the company brand, into those conversations I've seen. There's also advertising, which has been interesting. Like when I was at Gartner, Software Advice was starting to do a lot of testing inside Reddit or Quora ads as a brand. But all that to be said, like I think LinkedIn, and we've been talking about LinkedIn for years and years, is arguably the best, at least in our opinion, right? And it allows us to be seen with our target. There's a lot of targeting that we can do using LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Right. There's all the juiciness from SEO and now AEO tied to Microsoft. There's just a lot of different tooling on LinkedIn. So if you're going to invest time, I mean, for like a lot of people I know, Meta, Facebook, it's
100% with you. Yeah.
Especially for us that have, been on these platforms for years. And if you haven't, like on Instagram, if you don't have an established 100,000 plus following, it seems
what's the point? I stopped posting on there a while ago.
It's gotten really difficult. So so I think all of us just need to know who we're going after, know how do we want to produce content, what feels right, and do great job on what feels right. Couple places, land it, have a good website that's AEO optimized now with vibe coding, get long form content. Long form content is a big one. YouTube has been and will continue.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. I mean, YouTube is a great one. So it's just like everyone, for us, as now moving into technology world, working with business owners, B2B, service-led founders, professional services, financial services, law, that's the world that we play in.
Yeah.
Not so much, then TikTok's not there, right? In Meta, Instagram, not so, right. So this is where you have to know what you're doing. What's your offer? Who are you going after? Where are they? What are you trying to create? And so that first part, understanding that's what we've been focusing on with our new if you go to our Standout Authority, we relaunched the website and been rejiggering how we work with our clients to focus on building that authority architecture first.
It's really so true. We talk about knowing from the lens of kind of the personal, like knowing who you are, knowing your identity, being clear about that. But then on the business side, why, we spend so much time trying to create a service that fits into this like niche rather than like, what is the offer that really, man, I freaking love? And you've got the conviction behind it. You've got the values that back it up, and you've got the expertise and authority. I love that your business Standout Authority, because it is like, what are you an authority in? And I remember probably 8 years ago, before I started my business, I was watching this clip of this woman that was like, she was helping me think of authority in a different way by way of your own experience.
Yeah.
How can you solve your problem and then turn that into an offering or service? Because it's going to be something that's universal, most likely. And it's going to be something that you actually have emotions around and passion for and an experience and a story that backs it up. And people do business with people. They buy off of their emotions and they buy off of the experience and the authority that person has. So if we're just looking at it from the complete reversal, I love what you said, Rachel. Know your offer, know what you're good at, know you, and then go find the audience and the platforms accordingly. So thank you.
Yeah.
So good. Rachel, you're such a blessing. And so you're just so fun to talk to. You're absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
I really appreciate you. Thanks so much, everyone.
Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back on tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. I will see you then. Rachel, thank you so much. How can people learn more about you besides going to Standout Authority? Where should they go?
Standoutauthority.com is more of our done with you, done for you services. Humanize.ai. Go get your first score. YOUMANIZE. Get your first score, do a deep analysis. Let me know what you think. And of course, connect with me on LinkedIn, the Rachel B. Lee. That's where I'm most active. So thanks for having me today.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining.